So I have all 4 survey grant reports here with me from the projects that I have done for the Native Plant Society, which was 2 of my own survey grants, and then I'm going to speak with Noah next about his grant that helped him with, and so I have a report for that. And because I wasn't able to make it to previous annual gatherings, I put in a little bit about each of the last 3 survey reports that I did, but I only have 10 minutes, so I'm going to focus on the plant on the left, Scleria pauciflora, it's called huge flowered nutrush. You have a paucity of something, you don't have very many. Huge flowered, which I like when the translated name comes. I work at the Chicago Botanic Garden, monitoring the plants of concern, or coordinating the plants of concern program. Become a monitor. This is a plant that only a botanist could love, perhaps. It doesn't look like very much. But they're really neat. They're called nut rushes, which of course are not rushes, they're sedges, called nut sedges, but they have white achenes that are very hard. And some of them are smooth, and some of them are pitted like a golf ball, but this one actually has raised bumps basically all over the achenes. And when they're perfectly ripe and they're white, that is what you can see most easily because it looks like a blade of grass. There's not much to the plant. They arise single combs out of the ground, so there's not very many. They can be difficult to find, but also they have a big bract with scales that are around the achenes. And that is also when they're brown, you can see those in the field, and that is also very helpful. But it definitely takes a trained eye to be able to see these plants well. And so there's some more photos there of the plants that we're finding in the field. This is up at Braidwood Dunes in Will County. So the distribution of this species is statewide, and most of the populations are in extreme southern Illinois, particularly Polk County, but there's historical populations way up in Lee County, and there's shoots of grasslands. That habitat has all been destroyed. And then there was some in Kankakee, Iroquois, and Will up in the sort of Chicagoland area. But down in southern Illinois, mostly in Polk County, but a few other counties as well. It does really, so I went with Floyd Petchbull, who retired from Will County Forest District, but he had surveyed for this plant before, and we did it together, and we noticed when you go in the late fall, they have a yellowish color that stands out against the brown. When the brown vegetation, when you go in the summer and everything is green, it's actually hard to isolate plants unless you can see those white achenes that are produced. So we went in October, and that was really helpful. And in this particular instance, we did flag individuals. Debbie Newman is Nature Preserves Commission staff and 2 sites in Randolph County that are her jurisdiction. She helped us search for at Rock Castle Creek and Piney Creek, Rock Castle Creek. Oh, and her own property. She has it on her property near Ava. So here's her helping us search for them also in the late fall, which really is the best time to look. Nick Seaton with the U.S. Forest Service, close friend of mine, helped me out with a lot of surveys too. This was a particularly fun one because it was at Pine Hollow, which is privately owned. I was there in 2011 with Randy Nyborg, and we saw the species probably the first time that I saw it, and I hadn't seen it since, and we didn't see very many. And the landlord gave us a ride up in his gator, told us all kinds of stories, and we searched around and we found 6 cones there, but it was still there. And of course, the landowner is looking at what we're looking for. And but it was really fun to have his help and the help of many other people. With too many to name, but I did list them all in my report. So this shows the bonat maps for the species, which the bonat maps are pretty accurate. They're definitely a good place to start. I didn't find it up here in Lee County. I'm not even sure I knew about some of these other counties. I did find it in Will, and then of course down here in southern Illinois. So we have the numbers. There were 19 occurrences in the Natural Heritage Database. I ended up with 18 extant occurrences representing 24 subpopulations. 7 of those were new, and it's across 9 counties. It is currently a state endangered species. I recommend that it should be downgraded to threatened, but that has not happened. So I also wanted, and then there are 2 varieties listed in Muhl. And the first one, they're basically, one is the pauciflora is lightly hairy, and Carolina are very hairy. And all the ones that I saw, I collected a lot of specimens, they seem very hairy. But then I read this publication by Emir Tucker, which is Scleria in Illinois, and they said they could look at all specimens and had excluded Carolina from Illinois and remarked that they're actually very hard to tell apart. And I use that to say, okay, it's all this pauciflora then here in Illinois. I did 2 other surveys in 2021, 2022 that I'll briefly cover. American snowball, which Styrax americanus. We knew that it was much more common than it had indicated in the database and stuff. You need a comprehensive survey to do that. That one here is the thick one, which is 132 pages. Because we found a lot of it. And it is, when it's in full bloom, it is one of the most gorgeous shrubs we have in our entire flora. It grows in the swamplands of the mostly extreme southern Illinois, but it creeps up into the Wabash River area and even a disjunct population up in Cape Key in the lowlands wetlands, which we did visit and did find plants. This is fun too, the Plants of Concern crew. This is Ben O'Keefer who runs the program in it's CDG up in Glencoe, and I took them to Grantsburg Swamp. And Katie Sarah here was in the picture. She's right here. I think that's Nick there. And Travis Neal worked with me a little bit as well. And this is a really interesting experience to go knee deep to mid-thigh deep in the swamp where we saw many cottonmouths and navigate through. It's really sort of a rite of passage here. I can do anything. And we did find a lot of Styrax there. This is that Grantsburg Swamp in Johnson County. So you can see the leaves here. I think vegetatively they are pretty distinct, but I've looked at thousands of stems now, so they definitely stand out to me. This is the distribution here for Bonaps. You can see there's Cape Key area, which they are extant there, and we're into Indiana, but mostly extreme southern Illinois. So 23 occurrences were in the Natural Heritage Database. 10 confirmed as extant, 6 were updated from historical to extant, 2 failed to find, 2 extirpated. The extirpated ones were farmed, they were converted totally to agriculture, so I didn't even visit, know that they were gone. I had some of them on private land, I had trouble going to private land. We went to one site, and the person emailed me and was very ambiguous about whether we could come visit. So we were in the area, so we dropped in to visit, and she was basically like not very receptive. And I said, "How about we just leave and we'll just not come back? We'll just say this is landowner doesn't want visitation." And she said, "Yeah, that sounds good." And later learned from Susie McIntyre that woman went to prison for murder. So. We did end up with 23, when I say occurrences, I'm really talking about sites. Discrete sites, but then a site might have more than one subpopulation, so 46 extant subpopulations in 10 counties would lead me to think that it's not very rare. And I didn't suggest that it should be delisted. I volunteered to do the petition for the last listing, and I didn't do it. So it's still on the list is threatened, but it's really an easy one that we can take off the list later. So I'm running out of time. The last one was this super fun project, Heteranthera reniformis for kidney leaf mud planting. When I started this project, there were 5 known sites that had not been, none of them had been seen in over 20 years. So, and for my investigation, the first year, I didn't find any at any of the sites, and I thought this plant is gone. But then I found them at a bunch of other sites. So, we have several Heteranthera species, particularly what's called now Heteranthera missouriense. It's very similar in that it has that 4-8 leaf base to it, but they're very glossy and they're longer than they are wide and they have purple flowers. But that species has been confused with this one numerous times vegetatively. But we see them in bloom, they're white flowers with yellow-green throat, very beautiful. They grow in mud ruts. They grow naturally on the shores of, we found one on an Oxbow Lake, another was the shore of a swamp, another was a spring. The rest were in dirt roads that somebody had illegally driven through with an ATV or a truck and made big mud ruts there, and the plants love to grow in that habitat. So I was like, if this is what they like, we can make this. And mostly in Polk County. Here's my, sorry.
Oh, it's very fun.
So basically, this county, St. Clair, and a couple over here in the Wabash River were super old collections. Pre-1900, I didn't even know where they were from. I couldn't figure out and didn't visit them. But there were 5 in Union, Alexander, and Polk. And determined that 3 of the 5 were erroneous. So one of them was a Steve Hill collection that he annotated and himself, and realized later that that wasn't that. Another one was a roll rock sighting, and I talked with him about it, and he has a picture in his book, and that's not the right one. It was the Missouriense species. And then there was, another one somewhere else. So we added 6, though, new subpopulations. So the first year I did the survey, I thought, this is going to be gone. We didn't see it in any previously seen place. They're annuals. I went back in 2022 and I found them in those 2 spots, in addition to the 6 other ones. So we ended up with 6 occurrences, 8 subpopulations, and 2 counties just Alexander. So this was particularly, I mean, the Skyrock was good because there was more than we thought, and we should maybe delist it. But this one here is super valuable because nothing had been known for so long. And not only did we clarify what the previous sites, we added the. So I think that. Oh, then I had this video. Took sound. That's okay. Basically, I'm saying, oh, cool, look at this. And I go down and I'm showing them that I have found some in Alexander County, and my let's get excited. We found something. Sound that I'm playing here is this.
So it's so small. Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah. So.
Thank you very much.